Hey, everybody, this is Liz from Augusta, and today I have someone very special that I want you to meet and to hear about their story with Augusta. And I'll let him introduce himself, his name, where he's from, and a little bit about what makes him who he is.
All right. My name's Eric Thompson. I currently live down here in lovely Deland, Florida, the Sunshine State. I'm originally from Missouri. A little bit about me: I spent 5 years in the United States Army. Got out, went to college. I have a master's and a bachelor's in public administration. I worked in the public sector um, for about 7 years after leaving the military until I found my passion, Augusta Lawn Care.
Wow. Wow. So tell me a little bit about how you even came to want to go to school for that, and what that was after the military. So while you were in the military, what were you thinking you'd want to do after?
So originally, because I joined the military at 17, so
Mm,
originally I had planned to stay in the military for 20 years and retire. And then as I got older and the military started to change culturally, I realized that there was more that I wanted to do and have a family and, have children. And that's tough whenever you're
mhm.
working as much as the military was at the time. And I wanted an education. So I decided to get out and go to school. And originally, I ended up in Florida because originally four of us were going to move down to Florida. We were all going to go to school. We were all going to become cops. And
Wow.
only two of us did. Only two of us moved down here. And neither one of us are cops. The guy I actually moved down here with, he went back on active duty. So he's back in the military. Um, one of the other guys is a nurse in Indiana. And then actually, one of us is a police officer in Oregon. Um, but I found public administration in high school. One of my wrestling coaches was getting his master's in public policy, and he was very involved in government. And so I worked on a few campaigns with him, to include his first campaign when he ran for city council. Uh,
Cool.
Always kind of had this interest in, like local government and all these things. So the college I was going to had a program, and I said, "Oh man, let me check it out." And then I ended up, like, I fell in love with the instructor. He was a retired police officer. He had worked, like, he was a community services director for a municipality where the school was, and like just had, he was a Christian. He had all these like great, qualities about him, a ton of life experience, just very knowledgeable, fun guy. And so yeah, once I found the program, I was like, oh man, this is great. And then I worked in the public sector. I worked for the state of Florida for a little while. I became a supervisor, things like that. And then in order to continue to progress my career in the public sector, I said, oh well, I'm going to need a master's. So I got my master's from Liberty University, finished that, and then pretty much I made the transition to Augusta right when I finished my master's.
That is phenomenal. So I got to back up for a minute. So you're saying that this teacher actually changed the trajectory of your whole career.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. Yeah. No.
You don't hear that very often.
Yeah. No. And he's still teaching. Like, he's retired twice already, and now he teaches at the college, and he's like the head instructor. He's in charge of this entire program, and he's well into his 70s. Just
Phenomenal.
still teaches, still has the passion to, you know, spread his knowledge and share, all his wisdom with people and other students. And he's just, I mean, just a really great person, and always there to help and anything. I mean, even to this day, we still keep in contact, and I can call him for anything and say, hey, I need this, or what do you think about this? Or, what's your idea on this? And he drop everything and help me. So, um, yeah, totally changed
Wow.
my trajectory.
I think I want to be just like him when I grow up.
Yeah, no, I know that. But everyone says that. They're like, man, it's just, he's just such a caring person.
So now you have this education, you have a master's, you have a bachelor's. How in the world did you come across Mike? And you just said it was your passion. So you got
Yes.
to tell us about your passion.
Yes. So I came across it because I had a lawn care company for my house. There's another veteran. It was him and his wife, um, and they decided to change careers. She was going into loans, and he was going to be a truck driver. And so they were like selling their business, and I was like, well, I'll go back to doing my own lawn, I suppose. Um, and I bought a zero turn, an edger, a blower, no, an edger, and a weed eater off of them. And um, I was on YouTube, like looking up like how to maintain the zero turn and all these things. I'm like, okay, well, I got to figure this out. So I came across Mike's videos there on YouTube, and then I just like binge watched them at work, which probably makes me sound like a horrible employee. I was not not
You were
busy.
not a good employee, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
No. So yeah, no. So I just binge watched all his videos, and I was like, man, this kid is just so smart, so intelligent, and really has it dialed in. So yeah, I just binge watched all his videos and kept up with them, and then that led to other videos and other people in the industry, like the Spencers. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, and then I was just like, man, and then the franchise thing came up, and I'm like, oh man, if I want to do business with somebody, I'd want it to be somebody like Mike. And I kind of sent some videos to some other mentors of mine, um, and I'm like, hey, what do you think? And they kind of felt the same way, like, and if you're going to get into business with somebody, like, this is the person to do it. Very smart, innovative, like passionate about, the field, and wants to improve, like we always say, changing the level of professionalism in the lawn care industry. Um, so yeah, then I just took the leap and did it,
Wow.
you know.
So his youth didn't bother you,
No.
and okay, and what really attracted you to him character-wise?
Probably his passion, honestly. Like, he's just so passionate about the industry and making it better,
About everything. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, everything he talks about is really, really passionate.
Yes, he is. He is. Yeah. So, yeah, no, the youth thing didn't bother me either. And that's probably because I've always, I joined the military at 17. Um, so I've always been like the youngest person doing something.
Mm,
When I worked at the state, I mean, I was probably 20, 30 years younger than the average person there. My coworkers. So I was always like the young, passionate person, sort of like Mike. So, um, yeah, the youth thing, it's like, hey, like, I'm a firm believer in, like, you don't have to be, well, the older you get, you certainly get more wisdom, and we can't take that, but you don't have to be 90, you know, to be intelligent or passionate or wise about a topic or a field or anything like that. And I mean, that is Mike. Like, he's very much like wise beyond his years, very passionate, obviously, about everything he does and everyone. Truly, you know, Augusta Nation truly just everyone just cares so
mhm,
much. It very much is like a family instantly, where
mhm.
like you're not going to get along with everybody or what they say all the time, and people are going to butt heads, and it's going to be like this like nasty, and I use that term very loosely, but like just like because everyone's so passionate, but
Yep,
it all comes from a place of like love, and everyone just wants the best for everyone else.
yep.
It's like, hey, like, no, we've been down this road, we know it doesn't work, or like, no, let's really try this new thing. And it's like, well, why can't we do it the old way? And so it really is just it is, it's like a big family. And then I've been very fortunate to have that, because like leaving the military, I lost a lot of that,
Mhm,
and that's been great to find again, because a lot of the people I served with in the military, we were all so very close.
mhm.
And same thing, like a family. And then kind of leaving the military and entering the civilian world, like, you really don't have that. Most people in society now we're not a close knit village anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't have that. People don't say hello to their neighbors. They don't wave. They don't, they're not um, just connected like that in the community. And Augusta, we definitely are.
Yeah, for sure. So, how do you feel that your education benefited you coming into a lawn care business?
So I think it gave me a good under or better understanding of um, just like leadership principles and management and even time management and budgets and things like that. Um, for me, because that's basically what my degree is. Basically, um, I always try to explain it to people like an MPA, a Master's in Public Administration, is like an MBA for the public sector. So a lot of it is the same, but it's very different. The public sector operates a little differently than the business sector and the private sector. So, but I think it gave me just a better understanding, and certainly the military gave me a lot of those skills too, as far as like time management and leadership and just doing what is right and also making decisions. But my education just really kind of put it all together, gave me I had the practical knowledge and the real world knowledge, and experience. That my education kind of rounded everything out and gave me that book base, that knowledge to go with that, to make me a better leader and more passionate about education and learning and things of that nature.
Hmm. So, for the listener that would ask about what that degree is, you probably should explain it.
Okay, so yes, so a master's in public administration, like I said, is the best way I can explain it is it's very similar to an MBA, but for the public sector. So it has a lot to do with management and leadership in the public sector, as well as like human resources, budgets. But budgets in the public sector are typically a little bit different than in the private sector. And then also like fiscal responsibility. So Liberty University, where I went to, is a conservative Christian university. So a lot of pretty much every assignment, everything was all faith based. So a lot of their teachings are all based on the Bible and what the Bible says, and how um, we have these inherent rights. The Constitution gives us these inherent rights, but where do they come from? They come from God, and then God gives us these inherent rights, and then we essentially give them to the government to, um, you know, uh, govern govern us, but not necessarily govern over us. And so, for me, and for that degree, the education piece of it, it just has a lot to do with like managing small local governments or state government, um, and my teachings and like my values are obviously more conservative than some other um, views. So yeah, just more along those
No,
lines.
that's great.
Like
So, it
smaller
sounds
government, but like sticking with a budget. Like you can't um, like the, now the public sector does. They do. The private sector, you can get a business loan, right? You can just
mhm,
go out of business and get a loan to extend them. Public sector traditionally really shouldn't do that or can't do that because their budgets are set. It's all about the tax dollars, tax revenue that's coming in. So your budget is what it is, and it's not changing. So that's actually one thing that um, I sort of enjoy, and about that piece of it is it does keep me more strict a lot of time
mm,
on the budget, because
mhm,
in my mindset, my education, so it's more of like the budget is set and it's not changing. So
right.
I need to figure out a way to make the budget work. Um, and then if I can't, then there's other options. But like for me, I really enjoy it because it keeps me fiscally responsible. Um, and yeah, so that's basically in a nutshell what the degree is in. It's just management of local, state, federal agencies, um, and with those few minute differences.
Sounds like something every politician should take.
Yes, so that's exactly what it is. And I truly believe that too. It's like, man, if a lot of these people were just educated more, because and when I worked in the public sector, I always believed like I was a steward of other people's money,
Right.
of tax dollars, and I think a lot of our leaders these days, and again, that term's used very loosely too, but a lot of our leaders aren't. They just spend, 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 or they're being pulled in all these different directions, um, and so they forget that there are representatives, and they have to have our best interest and be good stewards of our money. Um,
Yeah. In regards to that, your education and then coming into a lawn care business, some people feel like if they go into college, they get a degree, they've wasted time when they go into something else. And for you, it seems like it has benefited you, like the stackable skills of learning, and learning itself is something
yes,
that is a process, and not everyone learns how to learn.
yes,
And so with the way our industry is very fluid and you're always having to think on your feet and everything, um, both of them are beneficial, the experience, the education. But for you, it seems like all of those skills from the military and the education have benefited you. So it was not a waste of time.
yes. So I'm a firm believer, much like Mike too, an education doesn't necessarily make you good at something, or you don't necessarily need an education to be successful. But for me, like I do think it is great to learn, and I think that's where a lot of people sort of miss out, is because they look at it as like, oh, I need a formal education. It's like, no, you just need an education. You need to learn. Like you need to be passionate about learning and reading books and things like that. And even to this day, like I still read books. Obviously I read all the Jocko Willink books. I've read all those, and just other books, written business books and all different sorts of books, because you can learn so much from other people's experiences,
Hmm.
um, and not make the same mistakes, and you can learn at a much lower cost to yourself by reading and learning from other people, and just getting that knowledge. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the education piece for me, it just kind of brought everything together, made me a more passionate learner, um, and gave me some knowledge, some book-based knowledge, like, oh hey, um, this is some good information. Here's some things we can implement. Or this doesn't have applicability here in this sector or whatever it is. So I completely agree with you.
So coming into the lawn care industry, you started watching all the videos to learn how to do it, what the process is. You didn't have very much equipment, but you
Yeah.
started lawn care, and
Yes.
then you came across Mike.
Yes.
And how long into your watching of his videos and his content did he start talking about a franchise?
Did he or did I?
No, was it already in process? Was there a franchise in place when you first heard of him?
Yes. I think the first, because I'm franchisee 42, but I know a bunch of the first ones went like really quick. Because I think
Yes.
the first time I talked to Mike, it was like 15, and then like I mean, it was very quick setup time, but um, by the time it got around to me, I was already at like 42, and I'm like, I just talked to you last month. What do you mean we're at 42? But um, yeah, no, franchises had already been in place. I still was working I worked for local county here. I was still doing that. And I was like, okay, well, I'll get the franchise. It'll take me a little bit of time to get started, and get some customers, because we were kind of getting into the cooler months here in Florida. And I was like, oh, it's going to be slow. People aren't going to call, or it'll trickle in. I'll just be able to do both, really cash flow a lot of things. I won't have to take on, debt or anything like that. It'll be good. And my day job will essentially just keep the bills paid until the lawn care thing takes off. And I came I finished my master's. I came to franchisee training and like quit my job all within like a week of each other.
Oh my word. What
Like,
a
because I
huge
was just
change.
that busy because I had like, I mean, I got to 50 customers probably within, first 60 days. I mean, it was
Mhm.
just, I was not expecting it to grow that fast.
Mhm. So
And
did
it
you start
was.
marketing? Were you marketing right away?
Yeah, so I did everything at the franchisee training. I set everything up like we're taught, and I was had my laptop and phone, and I was like on creating an Instagram account and a
I
Facebook,
love it.
on Google, just doing everything as the classes were going, and started marketing. And I was like already, I'm like, when does the number go live? Like already getting calls in and like things dispatched. So. Um, yeah, it was really good, and that was back before we even did I probably would have had more if we could have done over the phone estimates at that point, because we weren't that wasn't even on our radar at that time.
Nope.
Nobody even knew about that, it was just like, we call them, we dispatch them, you go out, you look at them, you know, rinse, repeat, so, but yeah, I mean, I probably would have had even more in a less amount of time, just because command center would have been able to field probably 10 before I
Yes.
even got back from franchisee training. So, um, yeah, I mean, that's really just sort of how it happened for me. It was all just like very quick, and there were already franchises. And then, um, yeah, just like went fast. And then we continued to grow too. I mean, there were so many of it. I feel like the first 100 came really quickly. I'm
Mhm.
sure it was a lot. I know it was a lot of work on your guys' end and with Mike and the lawyers and trying to get all that, and Lee for sure handling a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it was just, yeah, for me too. Yeah, like I said, I think there were only like, mm, yeah, there were not very many when I first like started talking to Mike, and then it was, well, there were, okay, so as many of us as there is in Florida now, there's probably close to 10 of us total in Florida now. There was only two
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
that time, other than me. Like, I think I was, like, number 3 in Florida. It was, yeah, like,
So
Alistair.
so you're really on the ground level of
Yeah,
what the franchise is going to be, and you were
yes,
with us at the beginning of building processes, breaking things, trying them, like you
yes,
said earlier, frustrating each other, because we're building. It's not like we had a manual. We're
yes,
building this thing. We're
yes.
writing the manual as we go
No,
along. And
absolutely.
just for those listening, can you explain what you were talking about of what OTP is
Oh,
and
yeah.
how it can change a business?
Yes, so OTP, over the phone estimates, it saves everyone time, um, the estimator's time, the crew's time, because command center can essentially look at a property through mapping. They can measure it, and then based on a matrix, there's a price associated with square footage and things like that. And then there's other factors, gates and things like that. And then mowable square footage. And then they take that's mowable square footage based on the matrix for the pricing, and then they spit out a price within minutes, as opposed to maybe 24 hours to get an estimator out there. And then the estimator gets out there maybe the next day, and then he or she has to do their notes, and then they go back to command center or the office to send out, and then maybe they get the quote within 24 hours. Um, but it they could get it in minutes as opposed to hours. And command center has a pretty good turnaround time on estimates and things like that. Um, but it's even better when you can do it over the phone, because then it saves, the estimator's time. They can do, or general manager's time. They can do other things that they need to get done, as opposed to going to, a one-off property, or they go and look at a property and it's like, okay, this took me 5 minutes, and then they send the notes, but it was delayed a day because they just couldn't get an estimator out there. They didn't have someone in that area, or the customer called in at a weird time during the day, so we couldn't get same day, so it's the next day. So I really the over the phone, I really like, and it also helps too because then it cuts out that haggling with some
Yes.
customers. Um, and a lot of times those people aren't the ideal customers anyway, but it saves a very awkward interaction because you want to have this, I know I do, and I know everyone at Augusta Nation, we want to have like this great like relationship with our customers
Yes.
and like this impression. And it's terrible when you go to a property and then someone's trying to haggle with you like you're a used car salesman and it's like,
Yes.
no, the price is what it is, and this is what we can do it for. And they're like, well, my last guy did it for this. It cuts that out. You don't have to have those conversations. Saves you time too, because a lot of those customers that want to haggle, they want to tell you at nauseum why they think you should cut it this way or why they think you should charge this price. So a lot of times that eats up more of your time too, because it's like, hey,
Hmm.
I have 20 other estimates to get to today. I love interacting with you. I want to talk to you absolutely, but I just don't have the time to have this lengthy conversation about X, Y, or Z. So it does. It's a huge time saver, very efficient. Not perfect. Like in my area, there's still a lot of construction going on, so a lot of
Oh, yeah.
aren't. But when I know that, I like it because then when I know that, I know the neighborhoods and I know how they're building the new neighborhoods. So for me, a lot of times I don't even have to go out there. I
Hmm.
can do like an over the phone because I already know the neighborhood. And it's like, oh yeah, we already have a couple houses in there. I know here's what we're charging. Um,
Hmm.
so it does save time. It's more efficient. Um, and I mean money too, because you're looking at fuel costs to drive to a place and then your time and so on and so forth. And then command center's time too on the back end, then having to go through the notes and do it. If they can just click it, get the everything and send it out.
Yeah, I've watched it. I've watched it, and it is a beautiful, seamless process.
Yes.
And in the beginning, the way we designed it was I had to have something that was fast and free for the
Yes.
franchisee,
Yes.
and it was phenomenal. Even I had read a book about the rookie. I don't know if you remember me talking about that, Rookie Smarts, and it's like
Yes.
learning to think from nothing, like you didn't know anything, like you had no business
Yes.
acumen, and how to make it so simple and just figure something out that way. And I looked around the office and there was somebody who was a gamer and I knew what I wanted. I knew the verbiage
Yes.
I wanted. And I said, okay, you're going to measure, I'm going to talk. And we
Yes.
did that till we were able to do sales within 8 to 10 minutes
Yes.
with each other. And that is exactly the way it rolls live. And people would ask right now, well, what about gates and sprinklers and dogs? And well, that customers love to talk. So in
Yeah,
that
they
10
do.
minutes, you've learned all about their property. And the whole time you're measuring their property and putting all that data in.
Yes.
Everything the estimator would go to that job and have to figure out themselves. But better than that, you might not be able to get in the backyard.
Yes.
And so you've wasted your time even coming.
Yes.
So I
And
just figure if I can save you eight estimates, going to 8 in a day, which is
yes.
completely realistic in the spring, you
Yes.
you could get 25 estimates on there to go for those visits and to eliminate you having to go there.
Yes.
Let's say 3 were measured wrong. It's still worth it.
Yes. Oh, yeah, no, and that's the thing too. Yeah, even if they're measured wrong or just the efficiency of it and the like money saving aspect of not having to drive there. Um,
Well, to me, there's this beautiful thing called an apology. You
yes.
can call them back, and it was an estimate. I apologize. I measured wrong. This is
Yes.
the actual price. Do you want to go forward? Yes or
Yeah.
no? It's still, if you lose that customer, it's still way better to save the
And
franchisee all that
and
time.
that's sort of even my view when I go out to properties to do estimates. I'm like, okay, I estimate a mowing, recurring mowing. And then if we're doing it a couple months and I can look and see like, oh man, yeah, no, we got to raise prices. I would rather get them in and come back and say, hey, we're really sorry, but we got to raise the price.
Mhm.
Um, than to, you know, overestimate it or just not have them at all. Because a lot
Which
of times people they're understanding it. Hey, gas has gone up, or the cost of labor's gone up, or whatever. Or hey, really sorry, we thought it would take half a budgeted hour for this. it's actually taking, 3/4 or one whole budgeted hour to
Mm-hmm.
raise your price. We're really sorry, but we can't keep coming out. And most of the time, they're very understanding of that.
Mm-hmm.
Customers are, and the ones that aren't, they're usually not that great of customers.
Yeah.
In the long run anyway. They're paying late. They're calling to complain. They're, every time you leave the property and over, trivial things or nothing at all. It's like, your guys' trucks are loud. The mower was loud, and it's like, I was sorry, like we don't, or
We're not electric yet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's like, or it's like, you guys do have electric equipment. I want you to have gas. Why aren't you using gas equipment? So, and most of the times, like I said, those customers aren't the ideal customer anyway, and they usually burn through companies. Um,
Yes.
and that's been the thing too. That's really nice is a lot of people recognize Augusta and Mike. So a lot of landscapers, in my area, they stop and they'll talk and they see the trucks and they see me out and they're so then we get to talking about customers and just like how everyone's sort of what the industry is like here in
Mm-hmm.
my area. So it's just interesting to see, because sometimes it can, I know, and especially command center, I do not envy anyone that works here because I know you guys deal with the most difficult of
Yes.
customers on a daily basis, and I know it and I love that Mike does the YouTube shorts now of the customers because a lot of them are my customers. So and I know it. I just know it as soon as I hear them talking. I'm like, oh, that's one of mine. Oh, but they deal with like so many difficult people that it can be very like exhausting.
Yeah. So
Very uh, I use depressing loosely, but like it just brings you, it can just bring you down. So it's for me, and I know like a lot of other guys in my area, like we'll talk, we'll, call each other, text each other, and we're
that's good.
talking back and forth, but it's like nice to see like, okay, it's not just me. Like
Exactly.
everyone else is kind of feeling the same way about this, or, the way the customers interact, or just pricing and things like that. Cause my area, is still kind of difficult because there's a lot of solo operators in this area. And in Florida, everyone, definitely in my area, everyone's a long guy. It's
Mm-hmm.
everyone's side hustle. It's, so, but in my area, people are charging $65 to $85 a month for weekly mowing in the summer,
Oh
bi-weekly
wow.
mowing in the winter. So when we come in with a price that's much higher, and it's not, the thing is, it's not that it's an outrageous price. It's just higher than what everyone's used to.
Right.
And so it's like, well, but they're not paying taxes or they're a solo guy.
Exactly.
They can do that. We're scaling a business here. This is a business.
Mm-hmm.
Our employees get paid well, we're working, towards benefits and profit sharing and, P for P and all these great things we have. We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
build a career for somebody. We're
Yes.
changing the level of professionalism. We're not showing up in our Toyota Corolla with a bumper, with a trailer welded to the bumper, mowing your grass. We're
Yep.
showing up in uniform, our guys wear the shirts, they wear the hats, they're showing up in marked trucks. Um, it's we're professional company trying to scale an actual business. We're not
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood kid that's mowing, for extra cash and things like that. So that can, like I said, it can kind of be deterring. But I've been talking to and educating the guys in my area. And it's like, hey, let's get on this budgeted hour thing. Let's get on, you know, price per cut. You know,
Mm-hmm.
get if we're gonna do the level billing, let's triple it. Okay, we're
Mm-hmm.
not cutting for 65 a month anymore. We're cutting for 180. Come on, let's go.
I love it. I love it. So
So
that's what I found about Augusta too, is that it's not really a competition between the other people in your area. We look at it as there is no competition. We're
yes,
doing something completely different. So it makes it easy to say, hey, what are you charging? No, do
yes,
it like this. Do it like this. I found the same thing here. I interviewed somebody for Command Center this week and exactly the same thing. They said, well, I know this guy. I used to date this guy and he works at Earthworks and
yeah,
he was your competition. I'm like, no, no, no. We are here to help him and his company because we're doing something completely different.
yes,
So
yeah.
there's no competition.
And I actually said that. So in my first interview, when they did the zero turn um, episode on me, I said that because I met a couple that own a company in Daytona on the other side of the county where I'm at, and they have one. So I met them at Landscape Summit, and ever since then, like we've been so close. But we talk all the time. We're always, talking about pricing and budgeted hours and just like what trends we're seeing with customers
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. But I said that in my first interview. It's like everyone's so willing to help each other. Um, and they actually, so after my first interview, like a week later,
Mm-hmm.
I got in a bad car accident, totaled the
Mm.
truck and all the equipment, and that company, like it was fake. Um, I said that about them. They didn't know the episode hadn't come out yet. I said that about them and a couple other people. Um, I got in that accident, totaled the truck, all the equipment, couldn't work. And like literally they dropped everything, came out, covered my routes until I could get another truck, get more equipment and things like that. I mean, it was just like, and it,
Perfect example.
yeah, absolutely. Like perfect example of what we were talking about and how, like Augusta Nation is very tight knit and like we're all very close, like a family, but we want everyone to, we want to educate. Like you don't have to be a part of Augusta Nation. We just want to
Exactly.
educate you on what we're doing so that you can make your business better, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. So you started with a very little equipment and then you joined the franchise. How many customers did you have when you joined? And where are you today? Like how many years in?
So I started with 0 customers, but like I
Yikes.
said, it went very quick after that. So I started with 0. Um, right now, I think this year's been a little bit weird for Florida. It's been dry.
Mm,
Normally, we're getting much more rain by this time in the season, and we just haven't. And I also cut back on marketing. I was marketing very heavily last year. I'm not doing that this year, just because the labor market is still kind of weird in my area. So there's a big churn, and that was a huge stress last year, this time, just like churning people all the time, and trying to get all the work done. So,
so
um,
this is your third year or your
so
second spring?
this is my second spring. So I started August of 2021. Um, so last year was my first spring rush, and then this year's my second. Um, and
So
so,
you said that first year you have had how many employees and what was your revenue that first year with all that struggling?
oh boy. So my first full year was a little bit of an anomaly because of the accident. So the
Mm,
accident really set me back in the business, and it happened at like a terrible time because it happened right at the beginning of spring rush last
mm,
year. So it's like terrible timing, and I was already at the point where it's like, okay, I have one truck, I need another truck. I
mm-hmm.
was already looking for trucks, um, and here in Florida, and really the Southeast, like even Georgia, uh, at that time the price of trucks had doubled or tripled.
Wow.
So I had a $20,000 truck that I had, with nice truck. I mean, it was like a 2018 1500 Silverado single cab, like everything Mike talks about. Nice work truck. I bought it for 20,000 6 months before the accident.
Wow.
To replace it cost me 40,000.
Incredible.
And I couldn't. And the thing is, like, I couldn't find trucks. Like nobody had any.
Exactly. I
It wasn't
remember.
just trucks. It was any inventory on any cars. And I was
Mm-hmm.
looking all over the state of Florida, into Georgia. I mean, just trying to find, and you would find something and it would be gone by the time you'd get there to look at it, or even call and say, "Hey, I'm interested in this vehicle. I want it." Put
So
it. Yeah,
this was during COVID too.
yeah. So yeah, a little bit. It was like on the back end of COVID
Mm-hmm.
too, which again created. They still had all the surpluses on shipping and steel and everything. So like
Mm-hmm.
ramp racks, I was paying like an extra 2,000 for a steel surplus on a ramp rack, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So last year, the business unfortunately lost money, but we the revenue for the business was about 300,000
Mm-hmm.
in that first full year, which is pretty good.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, for all the things. And so at one point I had up to 5 employees at one point, and we were just, again, it was just like a churn because I was over hiring, and which we talked about.
Which is not a bad thing
Yeah, no, no,
going
no,
into spring.
yeah, no, and no, not at all. So I was over hiring, and it was just like a churn of like
Yep.
people would come in, they'd get burnt out, they'd quit. And I know command center saw that. I think everyone saw that last year.
100%.
And we had Mike, and Augusta, we had kind of foreseen that. We talked about it
Mm-hmm.
at Landscape Summit in 2022,
Right.
the year. But yeah, like the height of the season last year, I had like 5 employees, 2 or 3 trucks going at all times. And it was just still hard to keep up because last year was a very wet year. So, I mean, it was
Mm.
raining 3, 4 days a week, every single week. So guys are out there in the rain, as long as it's not pouring down rain or lightning and we can do it safe and not tear up somebody's yard. It's like, we got to get the work done.
Yeah.
Even then it was like 6, 7 days a week, 14, 15-hour days. Guys are working, just trying to get the work done. And then me recovering from the accident and just everything else. So it was just complete insanity.
So how many team members you had? Like I would say full time for the season, 3
So last year or this year?
last year, like
So last
all
year,
leveled out.
yeah. So I would say probably, yeah, 3 or 4 full time, like when it leveled out.
Hmm.
Um,
And how many recurring customers?
but we were close to like 150.
Okay. And did you use P for P at that time?
So I did. I've always used P for P. The only thing is there were that's one thing I learned too. There were so many people, so many
Yes,
employees that they weren't making P for P.
exactly.
So
So you can work with less guys and make
yes.
more money on P for
Yes.
P.
So now this year, which is why I turned down marketing or turned off marketing, and I'm just going with slower, more profitability because I have 3 guys right now, but I've gotten more commercial properties. So one crew is a 2-man crew, but they need it because they're larger commercial properties, and they're still making P for P because the money, the revenue that those commercial properties bring in can support 2 guys being there.
Hmm.
The smaller residential lots, they can't. When you're cutting grass for $40, it's hard to make P for P. So I have 3 guys right now, 2 trucks, and that's sort of where I want to stay.
Hmm.
2 to 3 guys max for right now. Grow what I can. Have one guy focus primarily on all the residential stuff. The other crew focusing on the commercial stuff. That way everything's getting done. We try to condense down mowing Monday through Thursday. That way we have Friday and Saturday as makeup days or project days,
Hmm.
and really focus on just the maintenance piece of it, and some very simple projects, which I'm learning here in my area. Sometimes that doesn't always turn out because code enforcement, when they were building some of these houses way back,
Mm.
older houses, people I've found, I mean, roofing shingles, roofing tiles, kitchen sink, I mean, you name it,
Wow.
like half buried in people's yards. So we go to do, and they just throw brush over it. So we'll go do, a cleanup or whatever it is. And it's like, oh goodness. Okay. Well, no, I thought this was just a big pile of brush. No, it's 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot thing of roofing tile.
Wow.
So, or we go to mow, and there's some brush, and you do a cleanup for the brush or to mow, and it's like, oh no, there's a sink sticking out.
That is unusual. That is unusual for landscapers to run into for sure.
Yes, yeah,
Hadn't heard that one.
it is. So now I've kind of put that into my estimating. So I always again, I'm big on education, even the customer. So I tell them up front,
Hmm.
hey, just so you know, I've done quite a few property cleanups here in the area. This is what I've seen. So, if we run into something, we may, it may take longer. We may have to do a work change order for the
Hmm.
property. whatever it is, one way or the other. We may not be able to do everything we said, or we may have to do more and
Mm-hmm.
a little more. So, um, yeah, so I'm trying to keep that sort of down a little bit and just focus on, because especially this time, like last year, that was one thing I learned too. Like we were just trying to do something, we were trying to do sod, and then people were calling about sod. Too many projects and the maintenance. I want to just focus more on the maintenance
Okay.
and little projects here and there that we can kind of squeeze in, or while the crew's out on the route, or I can go to in between estimates, um, and just have that extra revenue coming in, but mainly focus on the maintenance, the recurring services. Because also too, I mean, with the recession, I'm already seeing it.
Yes.
Customers' cars that are getting declined that weren't getting declined. People aren't calling about projects. When they do call for projects, they're like, "Oh, that's way too expensive," or "What do
Yes.
So we're already seeing that crunch. So I want to. That's another reason too. I've been trying to focus on commercial properties, or get more of those,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll continue recurring services as far as the maintenance piece goes. Their enhancements are going to go away. They're not going to do the mulch every 6 months, and
Right.
they're not going to do replanting, but they'll do the recurring maintenance because they want their business to look good, to bring
Mm-hmm.
in customers. And a lot of the commercial ones I have are hotels and things like that. So I'm trying to focus on that to sort of help recession proof the business, and keep those recurring, because residential customers too, especially in my area, when 65 to 85 is the norm, the average,
Mm-hmm.
eventually even a good customer, if money gets tight, lawn care is going to be the first thing to go, and they'll either do it themselves, or um, unfortunately they'll call somebody else.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it's the first thing to go, and with that, they're either going to do it themselves, or they'll call around for a better price to try to save some money when money.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm just really trying to focus on those recurring services as opposed to like project based
Mm-hmm.
work. Um,
So for your equipment, do you use trucks with ramp racks and all push mowers?
yes, so I don't use push mowers. I have, much like Chuck, I use right standards. So like I
Okay.
have a 32, 36, and then 252 standards, um, which fit in the ramp racks. So
Nice.
I have an Isuzu. I have one Isuzu. That was a blessing that I got last year. I was able to buy an Isuzu for a very reasonable price off of another company. I just had to
Nice.
drive to Missouri to get it.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah. So, and it was a long drive back with no AC. So in the middle of the summer.
I
So,
hope you had something good to listen to.
oh, I did lots of books on tape, lots of audio books. But um, so I have the Isuzu, and then I have one pickup truck with a ramp rack. Even the pickup truck I have with the ramp rack, I can fit a 32 and a 52 standard
Sweet.
on it. So it's very nice. Obviously, the Isuzu, I can fit almost everything on there.
And do you
Um,
bag clippings?
we do not bag clippings here. We mulch clippings here in Florida because St. Augustine grass is a thicker grass. So typically the clippings are mulched back into the soil, which creates the nutrients for the grass to grow or help it grow.
So if you have the St. Augustine grass, is there like a summer and a winter type, or two different seasons with two different types of grass?
So no, so typically it's the same type of grass. So it'll go dormant, and we do a lot of bahia too, which is a pasture grass. St. Augustine is actually like a lab manufactured grass. You can't even
Mm,
get it in a seed. You can only get it in sod. It's like the grass that everyone wants, but honestly, from like a lawn care perspective, like it's terrible grass. It gets disease. It's not very, drought resistant.
mhm,
It burns. It is a good grass for lawn care because it's expensive to maintain. Bad care. It's a
nice.
bad grass for lawn care because most people don't want to spend the money to maintain it, because you got to have
Right.
somebody spraying for weeds and pests, and then you got to edge it and mow it to a certain height, and if you do it too low, it's going to burn and things like that, so it'll get scorched. But then we do bahia, which is a pasture grass too. So typically it'll grass goes dormant in the cooler months because it's warm season grass. So it'll go
Mhm.
dormant in the cooler months. and then we'll overseed, not so much St. Augustine because it's so thick, but like Bahia and some of the Bermuda, some of the other warm season grasses we have here, we can overseed with rye. So we overseed with rye, and really looks, because rye is a cool season grass. It really looks great and green and just like lush grass during the cooler months. Um, so, and which helps again with the soil and keeping this soil nutritious and things like that for this, when the summer comes or it starts warming up and getting rain, then the warm season grass becomes active, starts growing. It has those nutrients year round, and it can continue to grow and be healthy turf grass.
So that is the good thing about being in Florida. You mow 12 months out of the year, right?
Yeah. So we mow about 43 weeks out of the year.
Very
So
good.
there are, yeah. So typically we do, and we offer winter services to try to keep our customers on a weekly schedule, or even I've even kind of had to modify winter services and say, well, look, we'll do it biweekly. Like you can stay on biweekly, because a lot of customers here, again, in this area, they're like, oh, well, my other guy does it biweekly during this time, or they'll just try to cancel. They come from up north and they're like, no, I'll cancel. And it's like, you can't do that here in Florida. Your grass is going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
We come back in March and we haven't mowed in 4, 5, 6 months. Your grass is going to be out of control. It's going to cost you, 3 times as much as if you would have just had us come every week or biweekly to maintain it, during the cooler months. So, but yeah, for the most part, we mow 42, 43 weeks out of the year.
That's fantastic. So that is recurring revenue. Your bread and butter is always coming in.
Yes. And that's why I'm really focused on that recurring revenue this year too, because that's what keeps the money coming in, keeps the crews getting paid and the business making money.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you what you would do differently from last year, and then going forward, what your goals are for this year.
So what I would do differently from last year is after the accident, I should have slowed down a little bit more, and probably turned off, or at least reduced marketing to not have that big influx, because it did. Growth, like Mike always says, growth sucks cash.
Yeah.
And that certainly happened. So it did. It sucked a lot of cash. And I wish I would have maybe taken a step back. And also it caused me, a lot of stress, and because it was just a constant churn of people and trying to figure everything out, and the equipment and the trucks and trying to find the trucks. So I wish I would have taken a step back, maybe slowed down, and looked more at profitability last year. But it was definitely a learning experience. So, and not necessarily bad. I've still kept the majority of those customers during the cooler season, and now some of them are starting to come back and things like that. So it was a learning experience. Moving forward, some of the goals I have. So eventually I would like to, right now we kind of cover all of Volusia County. Because Volusia County is it's growing and I don't really like it. But so when I moved here in 2019, it was still very much farmland everywhere. Like there were still farms in town. You could get anywhere in town in 5 minutes. Like it was great. Well, now there's probably 15, 20 new subdivisions going in, 200, 300 plus houses in every single one of them. So people are moving here, but the infrastructure isn't there. So it takes forever. But Volusia County, on either side of the county, you have Daytona, and then you have land. And then there's really nothing in the middle but state forest and things like that. So, but they're building up those areas. So eventually my goal would be to open up a second location to cover like what I have on Daytona Beach. Or if I wasn't going to do Daytona Beach, I would there's another smaller city near me in Seminole County called Sanford, which is kind of a nicer area. Or can be, and it's close. So the long-term goals are to, obviously 5 to 10 years, open up another location, and then have general managers running those, so that I could take a breath.
Yes. So are you out working in the field now? And is your goal to get out of the field and be doing estimates only?
Yes. So that is the goal. And I'm pretty close to that. Honestly, like I just try to focus, and I'm very fortunate with the guys that I have. Like they understand that. Like, hey, you have to show up to work because I can't cover down for you. You
Mm-hmm.
know, or like if I do cover down for you, it's gonna throw everything for a loop. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna throw everything off because my week's so. But I do still do a lot of the projects myself, the smaller projects. I do that. That way they can the crews can focus on the maintenance piece of it. Um, and it gives me, that way I'm still working a little bit, doing something, keeping me active, keeping my mind active, and then focusing on estimates and like the management, the operation management of the business itself.
Mm-hmm.
Not 100% completely there, but getting close to it. Which is nice and which is where I want to be. And then obviously the next step would be a general manager for the
Mm-hmm.
current location and then start another location and then grow that and then general manager or general manager. And then, now we're seeing again, Augusta has grown and
Mm-hmm.
sort of gotten bigger. So now we're seeing people come in and they just start a location with a general manager. Uh,
Yeah.
so that would also be, that's also a goal, like, a route I could take or would consider taking um, for
So,
that.
would you say that the discipline that you learned in the military and the appreciation of systems has helped you when you think of Augusta and how, okay, I'm going to build these systems and I'm going to make them cookie cutter, and then I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to completely
Yes.
replicate it? Is that
Yeah. Oh,
true?
absolutely. And that was a big attracting like factor for me to Augusta and the franchise model, because like I said, everyone is a lawn care guy here in Florida.
Yeah.
So, it's very easy. I could have done it myself and,
Hmm.
probably had the same amount of cut, but it cut the learning curve down exponentially.
Yeah.
And that was one of my mentors I was talking with. Like, that was a big thing they said. They're like, you can do this on your own. They're like, but it's going to save you a lot. Like, the franchise fee and all that, it's going to be worth it because it's going to save you huge learning.
Yes.
You'll already have the processes. Like, yeah, you could figure it out. Most people, that's the thing. Most people can figure it out on their own,
Yes. Yep.
but it's going to be a lot harder than if and I mean, I think us as Augusta Nation, like you said earlier, we're in this constant state of flux, so we're always learning, you
Yes.
we're always learning together, so it's not like we don't have it all figured out and we're like we know everything, but it is, so we're still learning, but we, like I said too, like we're learning from ourselves and
Hmm.
then we can spread the knowledge so that not everyone is making the same mistake. It's like, oh, hey, this person in Texas did this, like, it was not good. So
Yeah, for
we're
sure.
going to change the process a little bit. Or, hey,
Yes.
in Georgia, they're seeing this. So we're going to kind of work this on the OTPs or whatever it is, or we're going to change the process a little bit. Um, to make it better for everyone. So I mean, absolutely. I mean, that was, like I said, one huge factor that I really like. It's like, oh, the processes are already there, the efficiency's already there, the SOPs. I can just
Hmm.
walk in. I got the field manual, I've got the employee handbook, and
Hmm.
here it is. And then we're gonna continue to grow and expand. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
one question I have is last year you had an office staff and then didn't use command as much.
yes.
And so what was the thought process behind that? Were you thinking, okay, command is not mature enough in their processes and they're not good at what they're doing yet, so I need my own person? Or why did you?
No, so it was not that at all. So what it was is, like everyone had the staffing issues last year. So
Yes.
command center originally was doing everything for me, and it was great because then I was out working in the field, and like
Yeah.
customers would call, and I just say, "You deal with it. Like whatever you think is best, command center, just whatever. You have my permission. Just deal with it." And that was great. But then, like everyone else, and like myself included, we were getting all these employees, but then they were leaving. And that
Yes.
happened to command center too.
Yep.
We grew, I don't want to say grew too fast, but we grew too fast and we couldn't, support ourselves. And then command center made the decision, oh, hey, we got to cut these things. We're not doing them effective like right now.
Ugh. That's
So
terrible. It was
yeah.
terrible for you and
Oh,
terrible for
yeah,
me.
no, it was. But for me, the reason it was easier for me to hire someone that could do those administrative tasks, and
Right.
I couldn't
Then to
find
take
people.
them on.
Yes, yeah, because I couldn't do them myself because all the work, and I couldn't find people to work. And then with the accident, I was like going to appointments, trying to get that all taken care of, like get
Yeah.
healthy again, um, and then work on top of that because I'd hire people. I mean, multiple weeks in a row, I would hire 4 people to start on Monday, and none of them would show up.
I know.
And we would confirm Sunday night at like 8 o'clock. Like, you're gonna be
Yep.
there tomorrow, right? Yeah,
A
yeah, yeah.
no
I mean,
show.
yeah, and then they would just no call, no show, nothing. So or they'd come work for a day to whatever, and then boom, nothing. So
It's just
um,
not for me. Just
yeah,
not for me.
yeah, yeah. So for me, like it was just um it had nothing to do with command center or their performance other than like, and I knew the position command center was into, like everyone had staffing issues. It was like, we don't want to cut these services, but we just can't get to them. And then
Yes.
we were in the same boat. Like, I think all of us out in the field were all in the same boat. It's like, hey, we don't want to cut these services, but we have to. We can't get the people to come in or whatever it is. Or, hey, sorry, we have to turn down customers because
Mhm.
like we just can't get to the work we currently have.
It's
And
kind of a good problem because when you
yes,
think of the marketing and all that, obviously it works
yes,
because everybody got inundated.
absolutely.
Everybody had the work. It wasn't like we had all these employees and a shortage of work.
Yeah.
So it was
No,
actually a
no.
good thing.
Yeah, it was just, but yeah, so for me, that's what it was. It was just solely like, I can't find people to work in the field
Yes.
for me to do the administrative tasks that
Got
have
it.
to get done that command center was no longer able to get to
Yeah,
either.
so I'm asking that because then you started working with someone, and if it was myself, I would be thinking, okay, if I have someone that I've got to be in constant contact with them all
Yes.
day, which is what you would be doing with command, but answering, I would think, more and more questions because the person whoever you hire does not know all the systems and what you know
Correct.
about Augusta. So I almost think it would be more difficult, like let's say somebody had the choice of command or another person. Sometimes it works great with that person if your company's really big, but
Yes.
if it's really small and that person just walks into it, I would feel like it would be very overwhelming for the franchisee to be like, no, don't do it like that. It's not like
Yes.
your other job. It's
Yes.
like this.
Yes. No, absolutely. And that you're completely right. There's pros and cons to both. Um,
Yes.
because command center is all about like the processes too. And sometimes with anything in life, like you got to look outside the box, or
Oh, totally.
you gotta, but command center is looking at it very linearly.
Yeah.
So like that's one thing, but like you had mentioned too, it's like there's that learning curve, and it's like, no, why would you do it? Like why would you do that like that? No, no, no. That did you even read? Did you pay attention during training?
Mhm.
And 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 also like they get, that's one thing, the emotional detachment I'm able to have by having command center,
Beautiful
what I,
thing.
because like having an office person, they get emotionally attached to the customers too.
Yes.
And then it's like, grandma calls in and she's 95 and she just wants somebody to cut her grass for $10, and then it's like, oh, and then command center is like, nope, here's what it is. So you're absolutely right there. There's pros and cons to both, but for me, like it just makes more sense at the moment to have command center and like go that route, you
Mhm.
know. And back then it didn't, because it was like, they can't get to this stuff and I can't get to it. And but yeah, I would much rather have command center and it's more cost effective too.
Mhm.
Huge savings. I mean,
So for
I
the
save
listener,
thousands of dollars a month in taxes
you
alone.
just pay for what you get.
Yes, and you're not, like, that's the thing with an employee. Like, it's good to have team members, employees, and office staff, and you can do that. But then and if you stay on top of them and like train them correctly, you're absolutely paying for what you get. But then you're also paying a little extra too, because now you're paying taxes.
Mhm.
If you're in a state that has state taxes, you're paying state taxes. And you're paying all this extra stuff, and it's like, and they're a non-revenue producing uh,
Employee.
employee. I mean,
Yes.
obviously, command center, like, yes, they're non-revenue producing, but they're the office staff is the relationship builder. So
Yes.
they're bringing in the revenue. That's like salespeople. They bring in the revenue. They don't, so it's important to have that. But it's definitely, unless you have like, that's one thing. Unless you have like a spouse or something like that,
Yeah.
command center just makes more sense because it's more cost effective too,
Yeah,
and they're,
for sure.
again, completely detached from the situation. They're not, they're looking at it very linearly, and they could
And
say,
what we do on that end is we give them a lot of support on the emotional side,
yes,
because what I found, you can go in there and you can work 8, 9, and 10 hours. It's just what they will do. And they're on the phone the entire time. But usually the next day they call in because it
yes,
is so emotionally strenuous to
yes,
deal with problems. You're
yes,
basically the resolution center,
yes, yeah, no,
conflict
absolutely,
resolution center
yes,
for
no, it
all
absolutely
these
is.
customers and franchisees for that many hours. And so we give them that support they need, which is what you would have to give to your employee.
Yes,
If you had one, you'd have to, always
yes,
be conscious of their needs and stuff. So we're detached, as in we've got the systems, but then those people on
yeah,
the other end, command center end, have to be so cushioned and supported for
yes.
all of what they're dealing with
Well,
for the franchisee.
yes, and the thing is too, with command centers, there's multiple people working there.
Yes.
When you have 1 or 2 office people, if they call off, nothing's getting done, or you
Yes.
have to cover yourself. Just like with crews, like I said, I mean, I have 3 guys right now, and 3 is kind of nice because then if someone calls off, you can kind of plug and play.
Yes.
Um, and same thing with office staff too. If you have 1 office person, they could be the best.
Mm-hmm.
But if they call off, now that
Yep.
work's not getting done. Or if they take a vacation, command center, there's multiple people that can fill in and,
Yes.
kind of cover down until
Yes.
that person's
So,
back.
so to wrap up for today, I would love to have you share some of the things that you listen to and read and the impact they have on you. And then your overall experience with Augusta. Has it changed you as a person? Those are really two separate questions.
Okay. So what I listen to, I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. I listen to Jocko podcasts. Um, I listen to another one by a Vietnam veteran. His name is John Stryker Meyer. He has his podcast is called Sogcast, and it's actually a Jocko production. But he just tells the stories about all these SOG guys in Vietnam, these special
Mhm.
operations guys in Vietnam um, during the war, and sort of tells their stories. And then I listen to so many different podcasts and audiobooks. Pretty much every book now, like I I get on audiobook just because I
Yeah.
can listen to it in the truck. I can listen to it if
Yes.
I'm working. I love to read, and I really, it's great to read, but I can, I can just get so much more done,
Mhm.
and I spend so much time in the truck or, working or whatever it is, to where I can't sit down and read a book, even if I want to.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
just no,
There's no time.
so, um, and then,
Do you find that sometimes you go into a whole phase of you're into Audible books and then you'll
yes,
switch over to YouTube or
yes,
podcasts?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I very much do. Like, I'll get like dialed in on podcasts. Um, and then I'll go to a phase where it's like, okay, now I'm really dialed in on audiobooks, or watching YouTube videos, or whatever it is. um so yeah, and then I read a lot of like leadership books. Say, like, I'm starting to get more into like business books and sales
Mhm.
books and things like that. There's a good book, it's called Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
And it's written by a guy who was like the chief FBI negotiator.
Mhm.
Um,
Great book.
yeah, great book, very smart guy. Listen to that on audiobook, and I actually have it, and I started like going back and reading through it again, just like help absorb some of the knowledge too. Um, I read a lot of like military history books and things like that. Um, and that reminds me of like one of my favorite quotes by Colin Powell. Perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. So,
Nice.
yeah, so that's, kind of segue into how Augusta has changed me for the better. I mean, that's really how it is, because there's so much optimism in Augusta Nation. Like, everyone is so optimistic and just like wanting it to grow and everyone be successful. And you can see it. Like, it truly is a force multiplier. I mean, and we see that in Augusta Nation. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much optimism, and we're just growing. Augusta Nation just grows and grows and grows and grows. So, yeah, I mean, for me, like, that's what it is. It's just nice to be a part of a family in a community where, like, I mean, and we see it all the time where guys will drop everything to come help
Hmm.
one
Yep.
another. Here in Florida, like, I get guys that call me all the time, like other franchisees that are like, "Hey, you need help with anything? Hey, you're doing lights. Can I come shadow you for lights? I'll help." Like, or hey, I'm slow this week. Do you need help? I mean, it's just
Wow.
crazy. Yeah,
That's
it really.
awesome.
So, and we have a Florida franchisees group that, like, in WhatsApp, that we're
Hmm.
all every day. We're all like messing. Oh, hey, it's raining here. Just, hey, keep grinding, guys. Like, encouraging each other, and like
It's great.
different price, talking prices and business stuff, but like just really just trying to stay connected with one another and like
Mhm.
support one another. And that's huge. That's a great thing.
So to wrap it up for today, you have the floor, you have the platform. What would you say to encourage other small business owners?
Just stick with it. Try not to get discouraged. It's very easy. Being an entrepreneur, owning a small business is exhausting.
Mhm.
It's a lot of hard work. It can be very discouraging at times, but if you find a good community and good support, you can achieve anything. Just don't give up. Know your worth. That's another big
Yes.
one that I tell people. Like, especially when you're starting out, it's easy to get into like being the lowest bidder.
Yes.
You got to get to the point where it's like, hey,
Awesome.
this job just isn't worth it. Here's my price. And that's one thing I learned last year, and where I'm at now. Like, I have no problem telling customers, I'm like, the price is what it is. Sorry. Like,
Yep.
but we're not coming out. I mean, I just had that issue Friday. Well, for a couple weeks now, this customer just keeps calling in, but wanting us to change the price. But it's like, no, we spent 6.5 budgeted hours trimming your azaleas last year. We do it once a year. The price, I'll double it, but like, we doubled the price, yes, but it's also
Mhm.
still a discount, because and for you're getting it for 520, and now we charge 899 for a 1 year,
Yes.
trimming. So, because it's going to take a whole day, especially like this property, it's probably 500 square feet of trimming or more.
Wow.
I mean, it's huge. It's like these huge shrubs. But it's like, it's going to take a crew a whole day. Like,
Mhm.
we can't. So just know your worth, know your price. Don't be afraid to say no and turn down work, because in the long run, it's going to save you money, because it's going to save you time and emotional, just anxiety and things like that,
Mhm.
because you're going to be doing it, not making any money or losing money. It's like, oh, well, I sent someone to do that, especially when you get employees. I said, oh, I sent someone to do that, and they paid 200, but it cost me 350. I was complete, like, sometimes
Yeah.
those things happen, things come up, and it's like, oh, but you gotta just not be afraid to say no, and say, the price is what the price is. Know your worth. This is what we charge. Maybe we're not for you, or, we're not the right fit for you. We're not the right company for you. We can't provide those services that you need at the price you need it at. So that's probably
I love it.
my
I love
biggest
it.
thing, my best advice I can give.
Well, we appreciate your time today, and we'll wrap up for now. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.